I get on with sanitisation, got all of this to get through, I can at least make a start on the mash. And in the mash, I can start to bring 3.5 litres of our distilled water up to 72 degrees. I can also test out my new, wow, look at that, my new thermometer that is actually a jam thermometer, believe it or not, and clips on the side of the saucepan. So even easier, one hopes. We'll see. I feel like I've become a drug dealer with all these little white powders, but here are my very small quantities of water chemicals. So we can get started. With step one, which is to start the mash and introduce our water chemicals. So the first one is 0.54 grams of calcium chloride. I have 0.53 grams of the Epsom salts. 0.87 grams of the gypsum. I haven't sanitised my spoon yet. Back in a sec. I've caught up with sanitisation, all good. I'm just waiting for that to get to 72 degrees. As you can see, I've started to mix in the salts, still there a bit. We're coming up to 70 degrees. This is a lot of grain. That plus that. I'm not sure. Might need plan B, which is a slightly bigger pot. This temperature gauge is brilliant. 70 degrees. 72. So I'll bring that down and start adding this. Which is easier said than done, you know. By a miracle, I might have got away with it. Be higher, I didn't mean that to happen. I'm going to need a bigger pot. Miraculously that fitted, but it was by a whisker. Still 72 degrees. There's no heat on. So it's 5 minutes in and the temperature's only dropped to 70. I think the strike temperature might as well, in a homebrew setup, be exactly the temperature you're after, because I'm losing temperature very, very, very slowly, which is a good thing. There's not a lot more for me to do other than stir this regularly, which I'm going to do until about 20 minutes before the end, when I'll start warming up the sparge. 3.3 litres for the sparge water. Minerals are all measured for the sparge too. I can pack those minerals away now. So 20 minutes in and we are still just coming up to the correct temperature. But my coffee's ready. Well, my efficiency is rubbish. We're 25 minutes in, we're on exactly the right temperature. I did just give it a tiny little bit of heat a second ago. Keep stirring. This is getting ready for next steps, but you know, we have minerals for the sparge, we have some Irish moss and some yeast nutrient which will be added at the end of the boil, and we've got our first addition of hops, the Fuggle, which will go in at the beginning of the boil. We've also got 3 grams of the Nottingham yeast ready to go into the fermenter when we get to that stage. The heat's on very low. It doesn't need very much at all to change. Sparge water, about 15 minutes. Water chemicals. My new thermometer is so good, I want 2, so I've got one for the sparge as well, but I'm going to have to go old school for that one. That's running at 66 degrees, so I'm only 1 degree off. It's so much easier to control. Okay, so the sparge water's at 78 degrees. This is ticking along nicely at 65 degrees, and we're just going to swap a few things around, ready for the sparge. The mash has reached 1 hour. So decreasing the temperature ready for the boil. I'm going to cycle the wort through there just to give it one more rinse. Gets rid of some grains out of there too, which is dead handy. I've got the Sparge water over here, which we're going to rinse the grains through with too. The aroma is lovely too, so we're definitely on our way to beer. I'll just clean that beer cooker. Clearly that was premature. As we noted earlier, 1.3 kilograms is a lot. I need the saucepan I put in the sink to put under here. Damn. Oh, knock the gas out. That didn't sound good. Okay, so our goal was to get this up to 80 degrees for 10 minutes, which we're at. Just ease that down a bit. And gives me a chance to try and tidy up a bit for 10 minutes. I've managed to clear the mess, mop up the flood, get the cooker working again. We're still in the mash out phase. I've got a couple of minutes left before we raise that to the boil, and I have a new step. And that is, I'm going to take a reading pre-boil. I'm going to take two readings pre-boil. I'm going to take both a gravity reading and I'm going to take a pH reading. Now, I can't do that straight away. It needs to cool down from this temperature, but I can extract it now before we do the boil. So there's nothing more I can do with that at this temperature. I've got to wait for it to drop down to around 21 degrees. What I do have to do though is figure out where I can put it, but I won't knock it over. Time for us to move to the boil. Another handy feature of my new little toy is you can see exactly how close to 100 degrees you are. And it's even got a nice, useful little red arrow to indicate how close you are. And actually at the moment I'm only 94 degrees, so we've still got a little way to go. We've started to hit the boil. Job now is to create just a rolling boil. Our first 10 grams of Fuggled hops. Pour. It feels like my volume is going to be a little bit too high. We'll see how we go though. We're 15 minutes into the boil. Second hop addition, 10 grams of Fuggled hops. I'm guessing that must be part of the hops. We are 10 minutes from the end of the boil, and this actually isn't a hops addition. This is Irish moss, which is 5 grams and is going to help with making sure that the end result is as clear as possible. It helps with coagulation when we do some filtering. And we've also got some DAP, also some yeast nutrient. Now, normally you see us add yeast nutrient at the fermentation stage, but when you actually read about DAP, it does actually say you have two choices. And one of those choices is to do it 10 minutes before the end of the boil. So on this occasion, since we're doing lots of new firsts, we're going to do it at this stage instead. I am giving it the occasional stir, particularly to make sure nothing's stuck at the bottom. I'm going to burn. This is definitely starting to feel a little excessive now, but this is our 5-minute and final during the boil edition of hops. We have reached the end of our 30-minute boil, so that can come off, and we're going into a brand new stage where we're going to let it cool to 80 degrees, then try and hold it at 80 degrees while we do what's called a hop stand, which is another 10 grams of hops.